Salute, BookTube. Welcome to my channel, the Saracen Salute. We're in early October, not as early as I would have liked, but I've been a bit delayed with my reading, finishing up my September reading. And I'd like to finish my September reading before I discuss my October reading. But now that I've finished my September reading, and you can see my September reading wrap up in the previous video, I thought I'd do my October TBR video, what I will be reading or hope to read in the month of October 2025. What is driving or influencing my reading for October 2025 is two events. The first is Victober, which is a reading event famous on BookTube where you are encouraged to read you're encouraged to read Victorian literature and mostly Victorian fiction. But this channel being mostly dedicated to history and nonfiction, those are my favorite genres to read. My Victober reading is mostly Victorian history, Victorian British history. I've got a bunch of books that I want to read, and this is the perfect time to do it. Victober also coincides with Historathon, the final quarter 4 of Historathon, another year-long book event where you are encouraged to read history, and it's divided into quarters, and each quarter is a historical period. This is the last quarter 4, and the period is 1820 AD or CE to the present. So that whole period, and that includes most of the Victorian era. I think Queen Victoria ascended to the throne in 1834. So again, the majority of my books are about Queen Victoria and the Victorian period. Victober is only for the month of October, but the Historathon event will continue into November and December. So what I think I'm gonna do is this book. I haven't decided which books exactly I'm gonna read, so I'm gonna really quickly show what books I hope to read, not just this month, but for the entire Q4 of Historathon, a Historathon pile of possibilities. And then, once this video is done, once I get down to reading, I'll decide which ones I'll read for October, which I'll leave for November, and which I'll leave last for December. Just to start, again, the best place I think to start is a biography of Queen Victoria. I've got two. I thought I had three, but apparently I only had two. I had really hoped that there was a biography of Queen Victoria by, I think the author is Julia Baird, and I thought I had it, but apparently I don't, so maybe I was just imagining. But I will show you the biographies I do have. I just removed the plastic cover because I still haven't removed the cover, but I now will. This is by A.N. Wilson, and it's called Victoria, a Life. Just get it. Very nice cover there. This is a floppy paperback, but yeah, basically a biography of Queen Victoria. I have another one, a much smaller work, very short. This is by Matthew Denison, and it's also a biography, Queen Victoria, titled Queen Victoria. A Life of Contradictions is a subtitle, but this is under 150 pages, without the without the index and the notes. 150 pages, very small one, in comparison to this, which is quite large, the A.N. Wilson biography. But Matthew Denison, I read a book. He also has a biography of Queen Elizabeth II, the queen who recently passed away, which wasn't that great. So I'm hoping this one is better. I didn't really enjoy his Queen Elizabeth biography, so again I'm hoping that this is more historical and hopefully better. Again, it's short, so even if it's bad, it won't take long to read. Next is actually a work of fiction. So most of the books are non-fiction, but I thought I'd sprinkle in. So I guess there's two works of fiction. I hope to read at least one of them in October. But this one is called Victoria, simply, and it's by Daisy Goodwin. And this isn't a biography, this is a novel. Daisy Goodwin is the author of the New York Times bestselling novels The American Heiress and The Fortune Hunter. the creator and screenwriter of the masterpiece presentation Victoria on PBS. She lives in London. But this is, from what I understand, early one morning, less than a month after her 18th birthday, Alexandria Victoria is roused from bed with the news that her uncle William IV has died and she is now Queen of England. The men who run the country have doubts about whether this sheltered young woman who stands less than 5 feet tall can rule the greatest nation in the world. Surely she must rely on her mother and her venal advisor, Sir John Conroy, or her uncle, the Duke of Cumberland, who are all too eager to relieve her of the burdens of power. The young queen is no puppet, however. She has definitive ideas about the kind of queen she wants to be, and the first thing is to choose her name. But again, I don't. Again, well, I thought this was a novel, but this could be. Uh, I thought it was a novel, a work of historical fiction. I'm still not sure now, but I do believe it is. I believe it's a historical fiction about a young Victoria, her young, just as she ascends the throne, not her older years. I think this is before her marriage, before having children, because she ruled for such a long time. Anyway, I'm still not sure if this is fiction or non-fiction, but I will let you know once I read it. Another book here I have, this is by Lisa Picard. She's written books about Elizabethan London, about Chaucer's London or Chaucer's England. This one is Victorian London. The subtitle is, sorry, I still have the price tag, The Life of a City, 1840 to 1870. And this is basically just about what London was like in the Victorian era. So the table of contents, chapter 1 is smells, chapter 2 is the river, I guess that's the Thames, chapter 3 is the streets, chapter 4 is the railways, chapter 5 is buildings, chapter 6 practicalities, chapter 7 destitution and poverty, chapter 8 is the working class, chapter 9 the middle class, chapter 10 is the upper class and royalty, chapter 11 is domestic service, chapter 12 is house and gardens, chapter 13 is food, 14 is clothes and so on, health, amusements, the Great Exhibition, the Crystal Palace at Sydenham, education, women, crimes and punishment. Chapter 22 is religion, and the last chapter, 23, is death. So it just goes through what life is like in Victorian London. Again, I have to decide which ones I'm going to read in October and which ones I hope to read going forward. Another book I have about the age of Victoria. This is more of a general history. It's by Peter Ackroyd. It's part of his History of England series. This is volume 5. It's called Dominion. And there she is right there on the cover. So, again, big book about 19th century British English or British history. So goes well with the rest of the Victoria books. I'm sure Queen Victoria is very prominent. You can see she's very prominent on the cover. But there's others you can see in the pictures. There's you've got Lord Palmerston, you've got Gladstone, you've got Disraeli, the prime ministers in this era. So this is more of a historical narrative of the era. And then just continuing on, I've got, again, these, I don't know if I'll have time to read in October, but maybe hopefully get these read before the end of the year, maybe in November or December. I have Sarah Bradford's biography of Disraeli. This was one of my grandfather's books. I inherited this from my grandfather's library. But unfortunately, I think when I was packing it, I kind of creased the cover because it's an old paperback. And Sarah Bradford wrote a very good biography of Queen Elizabeth II, which I really enjoyed. This I actually got to reading. I read the first couple of paragraphs, but I was a bit lost. I don't know. It kind of throws you right to the middle of his life, and I had very little background, and I kind of DNF'd it. I said, let me leave this for another time. So I'm going to give this another try and hopefully read this. Hopefully it'll be good, it'll be good at the second time of asking. Connected, I have I don't know where I picked this up, must have been really cheap. It's a small biography. I don't think this is in any way comprehensive or the definitive biography, but it's by Dennis Judd and it's called Palmerston. So I think probably the rival of Disraeli. I think he was a Liberal Party politician. Disraeli, very much a Tory. Again, small biography of a Victorian politician. Um, so again, I don't know if I'm going to read this in October, but hopefully this quarter, maybe in November, maybe in December. And my books about Victoria, or the Victorian age, I had hoped to also expand past the Victorian age. Again, Historathon is 1820 to the present, so it can spill into the 20th century, because I think Queen Victoria died in 1901. But there are some books that are what we can call Edwardian, connected to Victorian, but not exactly Victorian. This is a good example. This one is by Gerald M. Packard, and it's called Farewell in Splendor. And I'm sorry if there's a glare, but it's a very nice cover. And the subtitle is The Passing of Queen Victoria and Her Age. So this is immediately after Queen Victoria's passing. And again, it's the passing of Victoria and her age. It's a farewell to empire, farewell to the British, the height of the British Empire. You can see we were discussing a younger Victoria. This is an older Queen Victoria. So there's that, which again I hope to read in quarter 4 of Historathon. Again, who succeeded Victoria? It was her son Albert. This book is by Stephen Clark. This is a bit comedic, but I think it sold well and got some grave reviews, some glowing reviews. This is by, again, Stephen Clark. It's called Dirty Bertie, An English King Made in France. He has another book, I think, which is even more popular. It's called 100 Years of Annoying the French. But this one is, I guess he's a Francophile British author. Again, that's Dirty Bertie. He was Queen Victoria's oldest son. He was crown prince for so long because his mother lived for so long. He was very much a cad, a playboy king. He would love to go to France, the Biarritz, the Atlantic coast of France and southern France, and have fun. And he had mistresses in France, and very much a libertine, playboy. But once his mother passes and he assumes to the throne, he changes. He really, the grandeur of the office or of the position really, it changed him, and he became much more serious. And he was at the end of his his reputation wasn't that great as a crown prince, but once he assumed the title of king, his subjects' views of him, their perception of him changed. He became very well respected. He changed his way. He finally grew up, matured, and became an admired king, we can say, for lack of a better term. Just running a bit out of space, but again, and now we're going a bit too far forward maybe here, but I thought I would put this, and I also hope to read this before the end of the year. Again, I don't think I'll read this in October, but before the end of the month. This is the son of Albert, who became his official title was Edward VII. His son was George V, and this is by Jane Ridley. And the title is George V. It's his biography, and the subtitle is Never a Dull Moment, because this king he's been stereotyped as being very dull, but he was the king that was in power and on the throne when the First World War broke out. So not insignificant. And this book, that's huge. Again, I think assumed the throne in 1910, so we're well past 1911, well past the Victorian age. But anybody who's been following this channel, I've been reading a lot of Windsor biographies. I read books about King Charles, about Queen Elizabeth, about Prince Harry, his his spare memoirs. I read about Princess Kate, Princess Catherine Middleton, um, a couple of other biographies of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, who was um, the daughter-in-law of this guy. So I was reading those, and I want to read Victoria, and then between Victoria and the recent Windsors, I wanted to read some of the kings. So there's the Dirty Bertie, the King Edward VII biography I just showed. This one, and then his son George V. Again, my only fear is this is really large, and some of the royal biographies, I just hope this isn't a diary that okay, on this day he went here and did this, and I hope it's a flowing narrative. That's the only thing I'm hoping from this. But again, hope to read it before the end of the year. Again, going back to the Victorians, or the after the Victorians, the Edwardians. This book is actually called After the Victorians, 1901 to 1953, and again, it's by Ian Wilson, who wrote the biography of Victoria. We showed the first book we showed. Again, a big book. So again, I don't think this will be in October, but I hope before the end of 2025, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Basically, the first half of the 20th century, the British 20th century. So World War I and II is going to be in here. The death of Victoria, the rise of Albert, and then his son George V, up to the ascension of Elizabeth II. The whole succession issue with Edward VIII, who renounced the throne to marry the woman that he loved, famously. There's Adolf Hitler. There's Winston Churchill, of course. Winston Churchill is going to make an appearance. Although Churchill was born in the Victorian age, he's very much after the Victorian figure. So this is a bit, again, jumping a bit forward, but something I want to read in Historathon, Q4, linked to Victoria, but not so much. This one I might read in October. This is very much Victorian and part of October. This is by Daphne Bennett, and it's called King Without a Crown. And the subtitle is Albert, Prince Consort of England, 1819 to 1861. This was Victoria's husband and the father of her children. Of course, he died young, very young, tragically, and it destroyed Victoria. She was in mourning really for the rest of her life because she really loved this man. She adored him, just like Queen Elizabeth II really loved her husband Philip. You can see here's a photo. Again, you can see the love is genuine. But yeah, this is basically his biography. I don't know where I found this, but I'm happy I did. And again, I might read it in October. If not October, maybe November or December. But definitely, I want to get to this before the end of the year. The question is, will it be in October or will it be after October? I'm still not sure. And then, okay, now the next book is another work of history. Again, Victober, you're supposed to, I think, they prefer you read Victorian literature, but I'm doing Victorian history. And this is, again, this is by David Cannadine, and it's Victoria's Century. The subtitle is The United Kingdom, 1800 to 1906. So basically 19th century Victorian history, again, called Victoria's Century, after Victoria. And again, this is really the apogee, the height of the British Empire, when the sun never set, or whatever the saying is. The peak of the British Empire. So again, big book. So I can't do all of this in October, but I think over 3 months it might be realistic. It might be possible. Just might be possible to do. I had said that there was 2 works of fiction, so I didn't want to make it all Victorian history, non-fiction. I wanted to add some fiction work. So I showed that Victoria, I believe it's a work of fiction, or historical fiction. It's a novelization of Victoria's young life, the one I showed earlier. The other book, which I forgot, but I'm gonna leave the camera for just 2 seconds. Okay, there we go. This is a work of Victorian fiction, and luckily this was I was compelled to read this by the announcement of Steve Donohue's Read Aloud, which is of Anthony Trollope's Can You Forgive Her? He's already started this, I think, just the first chapter. Anthony Trollope, a Victorian writer at the peak of the Victorian age. I think this book came out in the 1860s, so very much in the Victober crosshairs. I'm looking forward to reading it along with Steve Donohue. This I'll read in October because he's reading it in October. Those of you who don't know, Steve Donohue is a big booktuber, book critic based in the United States. So if you want to read along and you have this copy, you can find it on Project Gutenberg. If you can't find a hard copy, he just started the read along, so you can quickly catch up. I've only read chapter 1. You can see the bookmark is just there at chapter 1, and I'm gonna read along with him at his pace. But I'm not sure if he's gonna finish all of this. It's a huge book. I don't know if he's gonna finish all of it in October. So this might go into November, but I definitely already started it. The thing is, Steve Donohue started this, and now he's started another read-along of Dracula, which is, I have a copy of it, but it's part of an anthology that includes Frankenstein and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Dr. Jekyll and Dr. Hyde. Anyway, Mr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Anyway, so he's reading Dracula as well. I don't know if I can read Dracula as well and read all the Victorian books or the ones I want to. So I'm gonna definitely read this, and I'll see if I'm gonna read Dracula, which is also a work of Victorian fiction. But this I'll read, or at least I'll start in October and do the read along with Steve Donohue. And again, if you want to join, you can check out Steve's videos. Just type Steve Donohue on YouTube. He'll come up. I'm sure most of you know who he is, but if you don't, you can. And then just a couple of more books. I think these ones that have nothing to do with Victorian literature or Victorian history. These are separate books that I want to get to in October. So there are 3 of them. So I'm going to read those 3, and I'm going to choose 1 or 2 from the books I listed here, that I showed here concerning Victorian history, and then this as well. That'll take about 5 or 6. That's maybe 5, 6, 7 books. That's manageable, I think, for a month for me. One of them, well, let's just go ahead with it. Regulars of my channel will know I have a lot of I pick up celebrity biographies from time to time because they're really cheap. Nobody wants to read them, or there's a lot of extra copies lying around. So I pick them up when they're cheap, but I don't want to keep them. They're taking up space in my library. I've read many of them this year, and I haven't enjoyed them. Most of them I've gotten rid of. Actually, all of them. I don't think any of them are keepers. So I want to get rid of them, but I just don't want to throw them. I want to read them and get rid of them. So I did a lot of reading on Arnold Schwarzenegger the past couple of months, a lot of musical biographies, I did one of Paul McCartney, one of Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones, David Grohl, the drummer of Nirvana, Elton John I read earlier this year. Enough of the musicians. I found this. Don't ask why. Don't ask why I picked it up. But it's by Nigel Andrews. It's called Travolta, The Life. The sticker is still there. You can see it's in the silver disco lights, because I think his claim to fame, what really rocked him to superstardom, was the Saturday Night Fever. I think that's the name of the movie, Saturday Night Fever. Yeah. Why did I pick this up? I don't know. I think it's this cover, just the shiny cover. But again, the author is Nigel Andrews. Look at that. Some shots from Saturday Night Fever. And then there's when he's older. I think that's from Pulp Fiction. I think he had a bit of a decline in the 80s and then came back in the 90s. Travolta did big in the 70s, decline in the 80s, and then back in the 90s. But again, this isn't, I mean, we're laughing, but it's not a small, it's 300, without the sword, 324 pages. It's not a huge thing, but it's not small either. So I'll give it a chance. We'll see. I don't know. John Travolta, there you go. Also, what I want to read again, regulars. If you saw my September reading wrap up, I read Michael Burleigh's Earthly Powers, which is an intellectual history of 19th century Europe. This is the sequel. Excuse, I can't think. The sequel to the first one. So this is Michael Burleigh's Sacred Causes, and the subtitle is Religion and Politics from European Dictators to Al Qaeda. So you can see Adolf Hitler there. I don't know who that is, and that's maybe. Anyway, you can see it like I think that's the Nuremberg rally. So if his first book, Earthly Powers, covered the 19th century, this is the 20th century. And I think this one will be a bit easier to follow because 19th century is more obscure. You really need to know your history. This one, 20th century, is more recent and hopefully a bit easier, not very complex, more relatable. And again, I think I don't know if this is, it looks a bit larger, and I don't think it's just focusing on Europe. I think here he goes a bit further than Europe. The one I read in September, Earthly Powers, was focused very much on Europe, mostly France, Germany, the UK. This looks like it's grander, and America probably plays a big role here, and the Middle East, I think, might play a bigger role. I'm not sure, but I'll read this in October and I'll let you know. And then finally, one book I want to read in October related to my Caucasus. Again, regulars of my channel will know I've been reading books about the Caucasus. I've got a bunch of books about the Caucasus. I don't need a bunch of books about the Caucasus. Maybe I need one max, if any. So I'm trying to read them and get rid of them. And so I've been reading for the past couple of months, maybe 3-4 months now. I've been reading, and then I have another one I hope to read in October. This one is by Oliver Bulov, and it's called Let Our Fame Be Great. Nice cover there. The subtitle is Journeys Among the Defiant People of the Caucasus. Again, the Caucasus, oh, there's a good map here. Is this region right there. So again, very mountainous, very isolated part of the world. Bordered to the north by the Russian Empire. This is an older map. Russian Empire, which becomes the Soviet Empire. To the south is Persia and Turkey, also quite powerful empires. And then the Caucasus is hemmed in by two seas. On the east you have the Caspian Sea, and on the west you have the Black Sea. So again, it's hemmed in. And then the Caucasus are very mountainous. So there's two mountain regions that isolated both from Persia and the Ottoman Empire, as well as from the Russian Empire, but still easily invaded by these empires, and hard to be supported by any outsiders because it's so hard to get in. The Caspian Sea is a sea that's landlocked, and then the Black Sea is almost landlocked with a very narrow exit very far away to the Mediterranean. So again, here you can see also it's not just geographically is the Caucasus very complex, but it's also ethnically very complex. Today, the Caucasus is made up of three countries: the Republic of Azerbaijan, the Republic of Georgia, and the Republic of Armenia. Azerbaijan is very much Muslim. Georgia is very much Orthodox in the Russian sense, similar to the Russian Orthodox Church. And then the Armenian Orthodox Church is its own animal. So there's a lot of Christian and Muslim living in a very confined space. And then you can see here this is color coded with the different ethnicities that exist. There's Circassian, Abkhaz, Mountain Turks, Ossetians, Ingush, Chechens, Avars, Dargins, Laks, Lezgins, Kumyaks. And I think in the back, Oh, okay, well it's okay. Mountain peoples of the Caucasus, present day, but similar ethnicities. They're still around, basically. Um, so again, I'll be fascinated. Another book to read in my Caucasus reading project that has consumed my 2025. One of my viewers commented and said that they read this book and really liked it, so that's a good sign. And then another one of my viewers, Angelina at Books Do Things to Me. I think she's from this part of the world, somewhere here. She said she's from the Black Sea coast. So this area, she's either, and I think she's Circassian or Abkhazi. I don't remember which one she is, but she mentioned she's originally from this part of the world. She doesn't live in Russia anymore. She's immigrated out of Russia, but I think her town is somewhere on the Black Sea coast, somewhere over here. So uh, I don't know how far Oliver Bullock goes. Does he cover just the Caucasus region? Does he go beyond into the Russian regions? I'm not sure, but it's a big book. But I hope to read it in October. Again, in addition to the Victorian books that I need to choose. Uh, um, but yeah, okay, again, another long video. I apologize. Um, I'll let you know. You'll see by the end of the month which books I chose. I'll do a reading wrap up for the Victorian histories I read and for the other non-Victorian books I read. But until then, BookTube, happy October reading, happy Victober, happy Halloween in advance. All the best, BookTube. Salute.